and here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting with the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good morning. You are taking a live look right now at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where SpaceX is getting ready to launch a Falcon 9 on the Starlink 6-86 mission. And as always, this is not your ordinary Starlink, but these late night Starlinks do be hitting different. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for this evening's broadcast. And as is always the case, I am not alone on commentary. Thank goodness you're not stuck with me only for an hour plus. Joining me tonight on commentary from the field is Max Evans. How's it going, Max?
Good morning, everybody. It is actually a rather spectacularly cool and very moist morning here at the Kennedy Space Center, and there's a lot of fog in the area as well, similar to what we had about a week ago, but hoping to get Falcon 9 off the ground tonight.
Everyone's favorite word. Also joining us on commentary tonight from the field is D Wise. How's it going, D?
You know, it is indeed pretty beautiful, but like Max said, it is a damp evening here, as you can see with that fog at the launch pad. So hopefully we are in for a spectacular launch, though, in just about 57 minutes.
I think damp is a much better word for it. There we go. Yes. Even Nightbot agrees. Nightbot also agrees that Carson is the one pushing the buttons, pulling the levers tonight. And even if Nightbot doesn't agree, well, that's who's doing it. So, tonight's mission is another one of your traditional, but always not your ordinary Starlink launches. This one, the Starlink 6-86 mission. On board tonight are 29 Starlink V2 mini satellites. These, as we've seen a lot with these Group 6 missions, especially as we get into the wintertime, is one of your southeasterly trajectory launches. So if you're towards the southeastern part of Florida, towards the Bahamas and that area, it is a beautiful night if you have the clear skies to go out and take a look for this particular mission. And there it is. You can see said trajectory tonight. And of course, as always, the booster set to be recovered. Max, do we know what the downrange assets are for tonight's recovery attempt?
Indeed. So the drone ship station out about 600 kilometers off coast is the drone ship Just Read the Instructions, aided about 100 kilometers farther out by the fairing recovery ship Bob. Hi, Bob. So business as usual on that front for SpaceX. And also, speaking of recovery assets, the first stage booster that is going to be flying tonight is booster B1095, and this will only be its fourth flight. So it's a pretty young booster by comparison to most others in the fleet now, especially in Florida. In terms of its flight history, that includes the likes of, drumroll please, 3 previous Starlink missions. So it's had somewhat of a I don't want to say not noteworthy flight cadence to this point, but as you and I were talking about pre-show, Sawyer, it flew about 46 days ago, which is on the longer side for newer boosters, especially here in Florida. But that's, I guess, up to SpaceX as to why that happened. But young boosters can either be very problematic and give some headaches, or they are an absolute peach to work with. So hoping this one is the latter and not the former, but each booster has its own character.
That is true. And interestingly, with this booster, while it has only flown Starlinks previously, as you can see there, the gap between the launches, the gappage, shall we say, is
He said the word. He actually used the word on air. Oh my god.
I was trying to find a word discussing earlier when again, the pre-show conversation about the booster of the time between the different flights, and for some reason, my brain said the gappage. So the gappage between the flights is quite interesting. The first time this booster flew was back in May. Its second flight was all the way until August, and then it was another couple of months until it flew on its third flight in October. I mean, we're used to seeing these turn around in like a month and a half. So it's weird seeing 3 months and 2 months. The average reuse on this one per next space flight, 74 days. We're used to seeing like 45, 50. It feels strange, especially for a new booster.
It really does. I can't recall the last time we had a new booster fly so infrequently apart from B-1069 after its first flight, but that was warranted because it came down rather hard on the drone ship and damaged some of the landing legs and also crushed some of the engine bells of its 9 Merlin 1D engines. And we thought that it was going to get scrapped because we had never seen a booster really come down that hard, at least in the Block 5 era, and then be repaired and then reused. But of course, as we saw, about a year and change after that happened, we saw it flying again, and now it is well into the 20 flight area, or the 20. Oh goodness gracious, words are hard at this hour. It has flown well over 20 times at this point, so it's safe to say that those repairs have come along well.
That is indeed very true. So we'll see if that pace picks up after tonight's mission. And I did want to point out, by the way, that if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we will be here to answer any and most of them. I don't want to say all, most of those questions throughout the evening. So feel free to send them our way, tagging at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF. Now, weather-wise, D, we won't use the M word, but it is quite interesting tonight. Is that fog I'm seeing? I don't want to say it.
It sure is fog. You know, the weather is an interesting point tonight. So normally we would be telling you sort of the probability of launch based on the 45th Weather Squadron's forecast. They usually provide a forecast and publish it online so we can take a look at the specific criteria that they are observing and keeping an eye on for this mission. But this time around, we didn't actually get uh, one published. So, of course, there will still be weather officers making sure that the weather is acceptable for launch. But as you can see, there is fog by the launch pad. We have had some cumulus clouds passing through the area, though at the moment it's actually spectacularly clear. And in the distance, we have seen some lightning. So, our non expert view, and as Max would say, with these Mark 1 eyeballs, uh, there don't seem to be any major concerns for launch, and hopefully those viewing conditions cooperate and the clouds stay away like they have. It's honestly been about the last 15 minutes that those clouds have really cleared up. So hopefully that stays the case. The wind stays nice and still, and we get an on-time liftoff tonight. Now, if we end up looking back over at the launch pad, you might occasionally see some of that distant thunder and or that distant lightning in the distance with sort of flashes behind the launch pad. Hopefully that is a far enough distance that it is not of concern I guess, early morning.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that because we saw it in my shot before we went live, and then we just saw it on yours just a few minutes ago. And I was looking on radar before we went live, and that all appears to be either directly east of the launch complex or northeast. And of course, as we talked about earlier, Falcon 9 is flying southeast tonight, so not going to be a concern in the trajectory tonight, which is good. But it's also about maybe 50-ish miles off the coast. I just eyeballed it. But it's also not coming this way, so it really should not pose any concern for the liftoff criteria tonight, other than it just kind of looks a little unsettling on camera, but it also looks pretty cool.
I mean, when you know it's not a launch commit criteria concern, it looks cool. Otherwise, it's one of the worst things you can see as a launch fan. I will say that.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
I have to say, even worse, in my opinion, is a rain cloud at the viewing location when there isn't one at the launch pad, such that it could ruin your view, but the launch still happens and you miss the shot. That's like the worst combo, I think.
That or a cruise ship.
I wasn't going to mention the cruise ship. Both of those were things we were contending with throughout NG2.
Oh, I forgot about the ones during NG2 as well. Yeah, where we just totally lost view of the pad. Also, again, DOS managed to get the shot, rub it in, but the in-flight abort test for Dragon, it launched beautifully. There was one cloud in the sky, and it just happened to block the rocket at the exact moment that they intentionally destroyed it. So, yeah, that was fun too. Also, Crew 10, where it was beautifully clear, 90% go, and there was one cloud that just started to roll in by the VAB with a minute to go, and that called off the launch. Yeah.
Was that
Yeah,
Crew
was
10?
great. I believe that was Crew 10, unless it was Crew 11.
Blur.
Or no, it was Crew 11, I think.
That sounds better, but it also, I think, I think it was 11. I was gonna say Crew 10 scrubbed because. Oh, God, I said the word.
Oh, Max.
Max.
Crew 10 had to stand down the first time because there was an issue somewhere with the transporter erector that was an issue for flight that NASA and SpaceX both deemed worthy of standing down for. We haven't had a weather-related violation abort or S word, I should say now. Actually, I already said it. I can unsay it now or unjinx it. Scrub. We haven't had one of those in a minute, I feel like, but we're also getting into the more dry time of year for weather. And which obviously you wouldn't guess based on how much moisture is in the air tonight and has been for about the past week. Because normally we have a handful of foggy days per year here in Central Florida, and we've been getting a lot more than that recently. But weather is usually a lot more stable around here at this time of year.
I just checked. It was Crew 11. Carson also checking. Severin also checking. Everyone in chat checking. Yeah, that was Crew 11. That one stung. That one really stung. That one also, I believe that was the one that had the final landing at LZ1. Was that one too, or
I believe it was, yeah.
the one where because of the clouds that came in the way, we didn't get to hear any of it?
That's right. Yeah, we saw it disappear behind some. There were there were literal rain clouds in between the KSC press site, which is where we are tonight, and the LC1, LZ2 complex, which is kind of down by LC 36, so way south on the Cape. And there were some rain clouds in between there, and because of that, we didn't hear either. We didn't hear landing burn, and also more surprisingly, we didn't get any sort of sonic boom. So basically all the rain that was over there and the clouds served as their own, I guess, sound suppression water system and absorbed all of that sound energy coming from that way, which I've never really experienced before because I've always heard at least some of the sound punch through of sorts, but we got none of that on Crew 11. It was a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, the final farewell. You can't say it went out with a bang because there were no bangs from the sonic booms.
Well, at least where we were, there probably was over closer on the south side of the base, but not for us here at the press side, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, but it was bizarre not hearing it. I'll say that. You could see the replay from Crew 11 on the left. That was the one. That was the most recent crew launch, too.
Gosh, was it?
Yeah, next one, Crew 12, is no earlier than February, and obviously Starliner isn't flying anybody, so
Yeah, that's true.
that would be the most recent crew launch from Florida.
It feels like both yesterday and like last year, which borderline is at this point because we are now technically into December. But we get crew launches maybe 2 or 3 times a year if there is a commercial mission in there. We have had a lot in the past 12 to 15 months from Florida, which is one of the bonuses of being able to launch from Florida because we have 2 certified launch pads, at least in SpaceX's hands, that can fly Dragon with crew. Of course, Starliner can fly and has flown crew from Slick 41 with the Starliner CFT mission back in June of last year, but unfortunately it has not flown crew since, and it likely won't at least until the second half of next year, should Starliner 1 work out as well as everyone hopes it does, if they even have a crew assigned to Starliner 2. That's a whole mixed bag in itself.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit on the Flame Trench, but yeah, also Starliner's never landed a crew, but that's a whole other thing too.
Yes.
Oh boy. But yeah, so I mean, we've had Fram, we've had Axiom, and then of course the NASA crew missions. Gotta love the
And
Space
also
Coast.
and also Polaris Dawn back in September of 2024.
Oh wow, that is also within the last 15 months ish. Jeez.
And then Crew 9 also in September of 24.
Goodness gracious. Okay. Time flies, folks, as do Falcon 9s. No? Nothing? Okay. Um Appeals, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. Mr. Fluffy, you know which coast doesn't have fog right now? Grins. Starbase?
I believe it
Alright.
was raining in Starbase.
Not fog. I don't know. Anyway, see, there you go. Okay, maybe they do have fog.
It's kind of hazy over there, yeah.
No comment. I won't say which coast. Our abandoner who over on that coast can't answer for it right now. Crazy House Media. Will you ever add the most recent Starship pad explosion to the intro? Also, will the booster explosion set back the next Starship flight? Yeah, probably. Oh, kidding. But yeah, Jack was the one who was working on the intro. There will be a new intro in the works. So, soon, before the heat death of the universe, that will happen. As for the setback, I think it's safe to say a little bit, but I know we talked about that a bunch on the Flame Trench. I don't know what you think, D.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see some amount of delay, but SpaceX started working very quickly in stacking Booster 19 so they aren't set far back, like too far back. So I think we'll see a delay. I don't think it'll be a dramatic delay. Well, as long as this stacking of the sections continues at a good rate, uh, hopefully we're still at least Q1 of next year.
That would be nice. Hopefully it doesn't affect their timeline too much. Hey, speaking of timeline, we should check in on the timeline for tonight. Max, can you give us a rundown of what we can expect coming up here in this next portion of the count?
Yes, indeed. So at the moment, the SpaceX launch director that is based over at Hangar X here at the Kennedy Space Center is electronically going over all parameters and is about to conduct the poll, the go no go poll, to commence propellant loading of Falcon 9 to make sure everything is good on the vehicle and the ground side. If that is given, which should be at around T minus 38 minutes or so, which is about 4 minutes from now, prop load of Falcon 9 will commence at T minus 35 minutes with stage 1 RP1 load and LOX load, and also stage 2 RP1 load as well. That will continue, and we will see a big vent out of the transporter erector at about T minus 20 minutes and 25 seconds here because it's different than it is over at Slick 40, and that is the beginning of the thermal conditioning of the plumbing inside of the TE in preparation for stage 2 LOX load, which then will commence at about T minus 16 and a half minutes. And our visual indicator at that point that is happening is that vent will go away. So we are coming up pretty quickly on the point. Excuse me, of go no go for the current T0 of 2:44 a.m. local time here from LC39A. If they do opt to commit and go ahead with propellant load, they do not have the option to recycle the systems either on the vehicle side or the ground side and try again for a different T0 in the window, which goes until 4 a.m. local time here this morning. They just do not have the resources available to do that. And so once they begin prop load of Falcon 9, they are then set for that T0. So fingers crossed we get that. And we know that the launch window opened about 2 hours ago now, and we were rather hoping that they use that. But nevertheless, here we are now, and hopefully getting ready to see Falcon 9 take on some propellant here in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Max. And that is what we'll be keeping an eye on, of course, especially as we get down under 35 minutes. That's when all eyes will be trained on the booster for Frostwatch. Who needs Baywatch when you've got Frostwatch? Ryan, 98 Central, coming in with the tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com. Thank you for going the extra mile to do that. It helps us more directly, and we appreciate it. Saying, Sawyer used the word. Hey, I just said the word fog. Max was the one who said the real bad word. Twice.
I did, so I unjinxed it technically.
That's not how that works, Max, and you know
That
it.
is that's literally how it works because you have used it before. Don't even give me that.
I'm just gonna stay silent over here because I haven't said anything other than the word fog right now. So I'll take it. And Jason gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much for doing that. It's your support that allows us to be able to do what we do and have as many cameras as we do out at the Cape, have our people out at the Cape, and in addition to all of our cameras at Starbase and McGregor, too. So thank you. Here's a question from 98 Central, and D, I'll throw this one to you. They're asking, does the TE get refurbished at the pad, or does it roll back to a hangar?
So my best understanding would be that for the most part, so they'll do some swap outs like for Dragon at the pad, but all of it would then also take place right back at the hangar as well, depending on the level of refurbishment. But it's not like they're having to transport it off site or anything. It's all right there within 39A for that TE. And Sawyer, if you know better, please fill us in.
Yeah, for 39A and 40, I mean they have to roll it back regardless to get the rocket. So each time they lower it and they roll it into what's called the HIF. Their hangar is called the Horizontal Integration Facility, and they have one that's nearly identical at 39A and at 40. Although if I remember, the one at 40 is a little bit smaller unless they extended it since the last time I was in it. But it can hold about 2 or 3 boosters at a time in there. Most of the time, we see the payloads roll out in front of the VAB from their kind of getting set into their payloads over at Roberts Road, usually a day or two before, and then they'll integrate it, and then they'll roll it back out and raise the transporter erector. I would imagine during that time is when they would do any needed repairs, also inspect it, examine it, and check all of the things on it. Speaking of mounting the satellites and everything on it, here's an interesting question from 98 Central as well. Max, do satellite developers have to design their hardware around SpaceX mounting requirements for bandwagon launches?
I'm not entirely sure, but I believe they do. But although the housing themselves can be made specifically for the satellite if it has to be pushed off in a series of events. If it has to, at times, obviously it has to get pushed off, but some have to get pushed off at different velocities. Some can go slow. Some can go fast. I'm not entirely sure though. I would imagine. I think also other payloads as well do have to accommodate the Falcon 9 payload adapter. And the one time that SpaceX opted to use a different payload adapter from, I guess we can keep it unnamed for now. It didn't go very well, and apparently the payload did not deploy. And that was, oh goodness gracious, what was that mission name called? Sawyer, help me out here.
Which one?
The mission, it was a super classified top secret mission, I believe from Northrop
Zuma?
Grumman. Zuma. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
thank you, D. Yeah, so essentially that was the one time that SpaceX has allowed a customer to make their own payload adapter, and it didn't work. So I think it is a requirement now, whether you are on your own rocket or you are sharing the ride with many other customers as well.
And if I can hop in real quick, SpaceX actually has a published payload user guide specifically for the rideshare missions that they update on a pretty regular basis. And even if it's not the most thrilling reading, there are lots of really cool points about the standardized electrical connections and the mounting interfaces and the sort of different options that satellite manufacturers can make use of, because of course there are a bunch of different form factors that can fly on a transporter or on a bandwagon, and the payload user guide goes into a ton of that, and I find it pretty interesting to read into that.
Yeah, in case you're ever wondering, there are 5 different circular mechanical interfaces or clamp band configurations. For the larger ones, they're all pretty much circular. One of them is 937 millimeters, or about 37 inches, 1194 millimeters, or 47 inches, 1666 millimeters, or 65 inches. And then if you want to go really teeny tiny, there's one that's 610 millimeters, or 24 inches, and one that's 381 millimeters, or 15 inches. So you can have really tiny payloads and medium-sized dish payloads. And that's why you saw the photo that Carson had up earlier. All these weird, different shaped ones. Some are large, some are small, some are in between. It's really cool. Again, it sounds like a boring read, but it is really cool. But you could see there the different sizes. Some of the really large ones, like towards the middle and bottom, you see some of those tiny, smaller adapters. So yeah. Someone just said, did Alex use a Sawyer AI voice? Thanks. Well, at this point now, we are going to keep an eye on the boosters. We are under 35 minutes, and if all is going to plan, then they should be loading propellants right now onto Falcon 9. Within the next 2 or 3 minutes, we will hopefully see that frost start forming as the super chilled propellants begin loading into stage 1 with the liquid oxygen, and the RP1, which is less cold, but still cold. Here's a good thought question just for everyone. No Good God Games is asking, what are your favorite drone ships? Who wants to go first?
I think I'm gonna have to go with. Of course, I Still Love You. It was the first drone ship I saw in action here in Florida when the booster came back from DM2. And although it is not the original, just read the instructions. It was it's one of the OGs, and the fact that it's now over on the West Coast is kind of sad. But it's the first one I saw in use. So, of course, I Still Love You.
D?
I think I have to. I mean, of course, I Still Love You is like, of course, but I have to also say, a Shortfall of Gravitas having a bit of a different design and shape is pretty cool, and I quite like a Shortfall of Gravitas.
I mean, I'm going to go for the OG. Of course, I Still Love You, the original one, because I was there when CRS 8 launched in 2016. That was the first booster to successfully land on a drone ship, and it started a cascade of hundreds and hundreds of successful drone ship landings after that. So that's why I'm going to go with the OG one.
A question. Sorry, I have a question. Wasn't there only one? Of course, I Still Love You, and then two. Just read the instructions. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe that was the case,
Okay, so
but
then one. Of course, I Still Love You. You mean
I thought they
you mean
refurbished it before they did the big refurb on it.
I'm not sure. I believe how Just Read the Instructions is now was how they looked in the beginning, and then a Shortfall of Gravitas with its larger extended. I don't even know what we would call those. Maybe it's wings off the side to increase the amount of available space on deck. But I don't know. Did you say two? Oh, I don't know.
No,
I
there were
don't know.
two. Just read the instructions.
Right.
That was the one that tried CRS5 and CRS6, and after that they said, you know what? We had one that kind of fell over and went boom on it, so let's not use that one. Let's start from scratch. And that's when they went with, of course, I Still Love You.
Sawyer.
Which, yeah.
I have to kind of point out really quick, we're seeing a lot of vapor from the bottom of the transporter erector there, and I believe I can see a little bit of vapor coming off from the very bottom of the actual structure itself, rather than on the ground. So it looks like prop load operations might be underway, but we'll have to keep our eyes on the bottom of the LOX tank there for the next minute or so, because this is the point where we would normally see frost on the booster itself.
Ooh, there we go. That is what we love to see. I thought you were going to say something worse of like, it's not frosty, but thankfully, yes, it does look like frost is appearing. And if so, that means that they are committed to the current T0 tonight, which is 2:44 a.m. Eastern Time and 10 seconds. That is about 31 minutes or so from now. Beautiful. Someone also asking, so speaking of drone ships, is You'll Thank Me Later a barge or a drone ship? I mean, it's a barge. It's not going to be out there autonomously to catch things as of right now. It's just to transport Starship, right?
Yes, but that's not to say they can't convert it at some point, but its primary job at first will be to transport Starship Super Heavy boosters and also ship upper stages from Starbase to Florida for a period of time until Star Factory and the Gigabay here over near Hangar X are going to be online. Because at the moment, Starbase is the only location where you can actually build hardware that actually is used to stack both the booster and the ship itself. So that's not to say they won't convert it at some point into something else. but for the time being, it will just be a transport barge.
Yeah, so that's why I think that's absolutely a barge. It's not one of those where it's going to be out there trying to maintain its exact position to try and catch a booster before it goes on it. Also, I'm going to go out and say I'm amazed that nobody said Jacqueline, because it did say it had to be a SpaceX drone ship.
We can say that now, can we?
Yeah, it's caught one. Or it landed
And-
one. Again, the whole landing caught thing. But yeah.
And I guess
So-
Rocket Labs as well.
And not yet. But I will say, like, Jacqueline is super cool and a massive drone ship, and the fact that we saw a landing on Jacqueline so soon is incredible. With that said, it has such massive structures at the fore and aft section. I I feel like those are destined to get damaged one of these days. I don't want to see that, but I don't know. Seeing those sharp right angle walls of infrastructure at both sides of the ship, I don't know. It doesn't feel quite as sleek, I guess I would say, as drone ships like Shortfall of Gravitas. But obviously, it did the job. So who am I to complain about it?
See, my thought is the size of it is very similar, at least the landing area portion of it is very similar to the deck of any of the SpaceX drone ships. So I think it gives a sense of scale when you have those ridiculously tall structures. If you haven't seen Jacqueline at the port, if you're ever at the port, or if you ever see them on our 24/7 fleet cams over at Rusty's at the port, they are massive looking. It's like 3 or 4 stories tall, it seems like, of just structures on either side of it. It really gives you a sense of scale of, whoa, this thing is massive. And then you see the SpaceX drone ship support, and it's like, oh, that doesn't seem that big, but it's just as big. So that's kind of why I do like the sides of it, but I agree. At some point, that's going to be an issue.
It might be, and that was my worry as well, at least initially, because before obviously New Glenn 2, we hadn't seen how GS1 or the New Glenn Stage 1 booster was going to perform during its landing burn. We're so used to seeing Falcon 9s do their hover slam, which is them lighting their engines at the last possible second because the booster can't hover and slow down at just the right time. Whereas New Glenn has the ability to hover and translate off from the side. So I think if you look at it from what SpaceX does with Falcon 9, it can look a lot more risky. But after seeing how the booster performed on New Glenn Flight 2, it might not be such an issue if they come in just off the side and bring it in from either the port or starboard side and avoid those buildings altogether. But that's not to say that they won't have a problem at some point and have the booster come down hard, maybe off center or maybe too forward or too aft and actually damage some areas over there. But I feel a lot less. I have a lot less angst about those structures now, having seen GS1 perform the way it does.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it'll be okay for now, but we'll see what happens. And fun fact, tonight will, if all succeeds, would be the 200th successful landing by a Falcon 9 booster in a row. So 200 since the last time one had an issue with landing, which is pretty impressive. And I saw someone asking, wait, so that's why they called it a drone ship? Yes, the autonomous spaceport drone ships, which is the nickname for the barges, essentially. The reason they're considered autonomous is not that they come back into port entirely under their own power with anything like that. It's the fact that they can maintain their position. So once they're in that landing zone, the support vessel that goes with it can back away from it. And if all is good, it can hold its position in place, use motors, use whatever it has to stay in position to align itself with where the booster should be when it lands. I have that right, correct?
Yes, you basically hit the nail on the head there, Sawyers. They can hold their position by themselves, but and I guess they could in theory go out and come back by themselves, but if it's autonomous, it's best to have something having it supervised around the area, or just have it tugged altogether and save the wear on those thrusters until you actually need them. So, yes, they are autonomous, but they do need help.
We're all autonomous, but all need a little help these days, right?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I'll save that for a therapist. Anyway, RC Horseman gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Kiwi Nibbles also gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you so much for doing that. Again, appreciate it. If you got one of those gifteds, definitely make sure to give them a thank you. Mr. Fluffy asking, how many Red Bulls could a D-Wise chug if a D-Wise could chug Red Bulls?
A lot. I like to I think it'd be embarrassing to put a number on the most Red Bull I've consumed in a single day, but a lot. I'll leave it at that.
Is it more than the number of times this booster has flown, which is 3? This will be its 4th.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go, folks. D has had more Red Bulls in a single day than than the number of times this booster has flown to space. There you go. That's how we got to measure things now. Instead of bananas, is in Red Bulls. Anonymous getting some items from the shop. Thank you for working so hard to bring us the best launch coverage. We appreciate it. We're happy to be here for it. Getting the Starbase calendar for 2026. Very nice addition. Those, you should definitely check out the pre-order on them. And also grabbing the Re-Entry Club, as we are just talking about entry and landing stuff. Awesome. And 9 Central coming in again at tips.nasaspaceflight.com saying, you all are indeed my favorite space nerds. Well, thank you for that. You made an interesting observation there, Max. Things are chilly, but it's kind of hard to see frost, no?
I'm looking very closely, and while we're seeing a ton of vapor coming off the TE at the moment, which is what we would expect under prop load operation, but I don't see frost on the booster, and we are at T-minus 23 minutes. We should see a lot of frost on the booster by this point, and it should be very noticeable. There isn't much of a wind, certainly enough coming from this direction to block any sort of frost forming on this side, or maybe there is at the pad. I'm not sure. We don't have any weather data for that area quite yet. But normally, under most circumstances, we would see frost on the booster by now. But it's very strange. The flag, you can see the flag there going here at the press site, kind of by the countdown clock. It's off now. But the wind it's a gentle breeze. It's really nothing to write home about, and certainly not enough to prevent frost forming on one side of the booster compared to the other. But that is a lot of vapor. So maybe conditions are just right for frost to not form on Falcon 9 over there tonight. But I'm struggling to believe that's the case given how the weather is over here at the press site. And Carson also pointing out in the back channel, the T-minus 20-minute vent will be a good indicator if things are on track or not. So, which is about 2 minutes away from about right now. So, very strange. I'm pretty puzzled.
Although the TE at 39A is a little bit of an overachiever. It does the 20-minute, 20-second vent at like 21 minutes. But we'll see.
I think it's 20 minutes and 25 seconds, is it not?
It seems like it's been later and later the more I've seen launches recently from 39A, like 35, 40, but we'll see. We have seen in the past, though, that Falcon 9s recently, at least over at 40, look like only half of them are frosty and the other half isn't. So it could very well be just the angle that we are at. But yeah, the fact that you can still read the SpaceX logo is a bit unusual at this point. So let's keep an eye on it. Someone put, yes, curiouser and curiouser. So within the next less than a minute or so, hopefully we'll know. Obviously, we could see things still venting out of the TE, which is usually a good sign. You can still see the lights flashing at the pad, meaning that things are active there. But of course, this is the spot that we're going to be wanting to look at, that one spot on the transporter erector where you'll typically see that purge of the lines and the LOX chill down, I should say, that we hit at the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second-ish vent. So kind of right where that little plume of frost is right now. I don't want to take another question just in case.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm seeing a bit of vapor on the other side of the TE from this view now that I brought the exposure down so the whites aren't blown out. I don't think there's just frost on this side. There might be enough of a wind from that direction to prevent frost buildup on that side of the booster, but I'm puzzled. It's tough to see from 3.5 miles away, but we should see it in about 5 seconds. Oh, there we go. There's
your answer. They are prop loading.
How about that?
Beautiful. So there we go. That means that propellant load has been going, and you can see the LOX chill down underway. So the TE, by the way, that is the transporter erector. That is the strong back that rolls the vehicle out to the pad and lifts it vertical and has all the different connections on it for fuel, for electronics, for thermal conditioning, for data. All of it runs through that one structure, not the fixed service structure on the left like you would think. That's just for crew access. But on there is one of those lines that they use to load propellant into the vehicle. So they start with the RP1, rocket propellant 1, which is the refined form of kerosene, on stage 2. Then once that loads, they have to thermally prepare the line for it to get ready for the super cooled temperatures that we'll experience with the liquid oxygen, where you get closer to negative 300 plus, or negative 300-ish degrees, Fahrenheit temperatures. So as that goes, it will chill down, and then once it chills down at about T-minus 16 minutes, it should go away. And at that point, that means that liquid oxygen load will be underway on stage 2. Meanwhile, with that confirmation, that means that RP1 and liquid oxygen should be continuing to load right now on stage 1 simultaneously. Okay, I can breathe again. Here's one. Sausage Man was pointing out earlier. It seems like a coincidence that all the launches they've been at are at night. So they're wondering, are the only permitted launches still at night or not due to the shutdown ending?
So the FAA did extend that prohibition of daytime launches, but that has since ended. I believe that was on the 17th that the uh, block on any launches during the day was ended. With that said, SpaceX has still, and even before that was a solid rule put in place, had this preference for nighttime launches. I'm assuming for a variety of reasons. So, for one thing, uh, it means that they have to interrupt operations here around Kennedy Space Center a bit less because with every launch, there's a blast danger area. People can't be working at the pad or at a certain distance around the pad. It interrupts traffic flow. And so, if possible, it makes sense to move launches to the night, move launches to when less people are working, and especially with things like Starlink, when they have all these shells to fill out. They have so many launches they're doing. They don't have to launch during the day for any specific trajectory reason. So if they can launch at night, it makes logistical sense for SpaceX, like being a courteous user of the spaceport, to try to push it to the night. Even though we love our daytime launches, we especially love launches right at sunset, right at sunrise, and in that jellyfish hour. But in terms of minimizing impact to operations here, nighttime launches are what makes sense, and they are certainly what seems to be most common.
I think also to add on to that, they're also playing nice with the FAA and the airspace here over the west coast or the east coast of Florida, because the KSC falls directly into one of the approach corridors into the Orlando International Airport when they are coming in from the east. And there is a lot less aircraft to be disrupted at night when MCO, which is its airport code, is actually closed past, I believe, midnight or 1 a.m. So it's a lot easier to close the airspace at an hour where traffic is at a minimum. I'm sure the FAA also appreciates that as well, but that is not a defining criteria in terms of whether they can or can't launch. Obviously, we have seen plenty of Starlinks fly in daytime, but it is just a lot easier to fly at night in that case. And also, the weather tends to be a lot more stable at night and it gets in the way a lot less during the nighttime hours, especially in the summertime. So there are lots of advantages to launching at night, and that is why they launch at night primarily. But they are not strictly limited to it, since that FAA mandated order has now passed and been lifted.
Right. In fact, later this week, there's another Starlink mission, I believe, that is scheduled from the Cape that is a day launch as of right now. That is 3:16 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday from Slick 40. And also, you're mentioning the airspace. I was just looking it up. Orlando International is the 25th busiest airport in the world. In 2024, it saw over 57 million passengers fly through it. So that's why they don't want to disrupt that as much as possible. It's also in the trajectory towards Miami's airspace, which is the 27th busiest airport in the world. So it is a busy plane corridor. Here's a question from Saad asking, will Slick 40, as we're talking about it, will Slick 40 launch Crew again next year? Max, what do you think?
Well, it is certainly certified to and has not beyond the launch of Crew 9 back in September of last year. So it can, it is ready to, and I'm sure SpaceX would be happy to use it because Pad A is going to be receiving a lot of love for Starship, and the more redundancy SpaceX can provide with launching Crew, the better. So if they can launch Crew from 40, that opens up a lot of opportunity to get construction work done from Pad A as well, even though the views from over here at the Kennedy Space Center are not as good. But that does not matter to them in the slightest. But yes, they certainly can, and maybe the next couple might. Keep your eyes peeled. It will be pretty nice to see Crew launch from there if we have a closer perspective as well, because it is a really unique complex. And before Crew 9, there was no astronauts at any point that have flown from there yet. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, originally it was a Titan pad, so it was a lot of satellites that were launched from there. Then Falcon 9 took over, and I believe it was, 22 or 23 when they built and finished the Crew Access Tower over at 40, which saw its first action, Crew 9. So
Yes.
and which, again, like we were mentioning earlier, was only of September of last year. Sheesh. While we're talking about crew, vehicles, and launches and boosters, River Dave Kenny is asking, do you think we'll ever see another Falcon 9 booster with the worm on it? RIP B1078 or 1058, excuse me.
You know, my heart wants to say yes, but my brain says no. We got it on 1058, but and that was wonderful because it was such a historic booster to see that. But then SpaceX was also flying 58 for all these other missions that didn't have anything to do with NASA or the commercial crew program specifically, and it didn't make sense. So we've seen those logos sort of move to the second stage and such, like off the reused portion. I highly doubt we will see a NASA worm logo on a booster again, as much as I would appreciate it on a SpaceX Falcon 9 booster, at least.
Yeah, the best we get now, I believe, is on stage 2, where they'll paint NASA insignias. And I think am I not mistaken, that sometimes we see the worm on the actual Crew Dragon itself? Because I know for Axiom, they put the Axiom logo on it. I remember them putting a meatball, I think, or a worm on one of the capsules.
They do, actually. So for all crewed NASA missions, they put both the meatball and the worm both on Dragon itself and also on Falcon 9's upper stage, which is really cool. Although we don't see those on the booster anymore, so we don't see it being reused or as often as we like.
Yeah, and for those unaware, NASA has had 2 official logos in its career. The blue circle one with NASA in it with the red swoosh and all of that, they called it the meatball. And then there's the one where it's the NASA, which is in the red lettering that kind of all blend together into one. It looks very 80s because it is very 80s. Yeah, that one is the worm logo. And they stopped using it, I believe, in the 90s, and now they're trying to bring it back as retro and cool. Also, Kevin calling me very 80s. I'm a 90s kid. Thank you very much. Speaking of NASA stuff, 98 Central asking, when SpaceX launches a rocket, Max, do we know if there are any NASA control room employees that monitor the launch?
I believe for the NASA missions, either being a science payload or a crew launch, they do have separate facilities where they have people on console monitoring either downrange weather, recovery assets if they have any, and also at Hangar X, there are undoubtedly NASA personnel also overseeing all the data from Falcon and from Dragon as well. So there are NASA personnel buzzing around during crewed launches because obviously SpaceX and NASA need to work together to ensure that both the spacecraft and the rocket are safe for use and that the crew is in good hands. So I believe that's Hangar AE or Facility AE on the Cape side. That's a separate facility where they have people on console there. But I don't know exactly of anywhere else. Undoubtedly, though, but Hangar X seems to be the hotspot. Although, Sawyer, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was During the initial days before Hangar X was ready with its control room, they had people over in firing room 3 or 4 here at the LCC, which is in view, I think, or might be in view of one of the KIC cameras at the moment, or maybe it won't be. But if you see the VAB from the perspective of the press site here, the LCC is that very wide and long building at the very bottom right side of it, and that is where they have a team of people overseeing all launch and landing operations at one point. And SpaceX used to use that in the early days. And in fact, I think it was the Nat Geo documentary that came out about DM2, there is actually footage from in there of all the flight controllers, both on the SpaceX side and the NASA side, overseeing everything. And of course, Elon himself in there as well. Very, very pleased after the first launch attempt was aborted as well. So very long-winded answer, but they have people all over the place.
Thanks, Alex. But yes, there you see it in the bottom right of the image. That is the Launch Control Center. They still use it for Artemis and SLS, and they still do training in that. But it was firing 4 that D pointing out was leased until August of 2023. Then it switched over to Hangar X. But yes, they would rent out an entire firing room for those NASA launches. And I've asked NASA personnel, and they say that after each Falcon 9 launch, they take a look at the data from it and to make sure that they're still happy and pleased with how the vehicle's performing and that they still trust it to launch their people.
And also, it is still. Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's also used really, really quick with firing room 1 and 2 for Artemis. I believe firing room 1 is the primary site for launch operations, and then firing room 2 is either where backup teams are stored or just other personnel overlooking data. So it is still used.
It is indeed still used, and one thing that won't be used for much longer is our special Cyber Monday deals at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Our Cyber Week comes to an end now today as we reach December. This is 20% off some of your favorites from the past, ones that you looked at and go, maybe, I should have bought that back then, but it's kind of old now, but it's still kind of cool. Now's the time to get it, especially with all the discounts on it for 20% off. You should definitely go check that out in the shop. And then, of course, we have our holiday gear as well, which if you want it, order very soon. I don't have an exact date. I can't guarantee you it will get you there by Christmas. But the sooner you order, the better a shot you have at having it for the holidays. Getting those calendars, getting those sweatshirts, both the Starbase and the Falcon 9 one, the sweatpants, the shot glass, the TPS collection for all of your Christmas tree pine needles, because apparently now that it's December, all the trees will suddenly start popping up in houses. So if you want to go check that out, and our 1,000-piece puzzle gifts, all of that at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. So now we keep our eyes here on Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida for the 6-86 mission carrying 29 Starlink V2 mini satellites. Max, I know I'm going to need to let you run in a minute, but before you go to view the launch, where can people who are in Florida have to look to see the launch?
If you are local here on the Space Coast, you won't have to look far. If you are on the shores of the Indian River in like Titusville and Port St. John, just look straight to the east. LC-39 is all lit up nice and bright tonight, so it'll be pretty hard to miss even before liftoff. But obviously at liftoff, it'll be very hard to miss. If you are at Jetty Park or somewhere in Port Canaveral or anywhere south of the Cape in like Satellite Beach, Cocoa Beach, it'll also be pretty obvious when it will be lifting off and under power because it'll be a very bright orb of light in the sky. And if you are south of the complex, it'll be flying directly over you. So, but those of you who are local on the coast here near the Indian River should have a great view of liftoff because you can actually see the pad pretty well over the river. But also, if you are on top of the Max Brewer Bridge. In northern Titusville as well, is, in my opinion, the best public viewing spot outside of Playa Linda Beach or somewhere on site here at the Kennedy Space Center, either here at the press site or somewhere over at the Saturn V Center. But Sawyer, we are now at T-minus 6 minutes, and I believe I do have to go getting some cameras ready. So thank you very much, everybody, and I will see y'all on the other side.
Absolutely. And the whole point was also to mention that it is going to the southeast. So anyone who is along the southern part of Florida, even on the western parts over towards Clearwater and St. Pete, you have a chance. But especially if you go down Indian River County, St. Lucie, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, all of those have a very good chance of seeing it. If you do see it, take some pictures or video and send it to us on the socials. We'd love to see it. X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky, whatever you use, tag us on it. I love seeing people's shots of the launches because it never gets old. Just if you're for reference, it can take about 90 seconds to 2 minutes for you to see it as you enter West Palm Beach and even longer a little bit towards Fort Lauderdale. So just keep that in mind if you are further south, it may be a little longer. And this booster not landing in the Bahamas, but D, it is still landing southeast, as we mentioned. What are the ships tonight out for recovery?
Yes, let me get back and pull that up real quick. I believe that we have Bob out there for fairing recovery, and for the landing of the booster tonight, we have just read the instructions.
There you go. And this the traditional 5 to 600-ish kilometer downrange range for all of these for the booster landing and for that ferry recovery. On this booster that you see on your screen, which from this view we can actually see the frost, which is B1095 on its fourth flight, having only previously flown Starlink Group 12-15, 10-56, and 10-52. And at this point now, we should be coming up on strong back retract. We were talking a little bit earlier. That is that metallic structure that is next to the rocket, not the big fixed tower on the right. It's a metallic structure with those little yellow bits at the top. There are clamps that will open up underneath the fairing halves, and then it will lean back 1.8 degrees. In doing so, it will get just enough out of the way ahead of launch, and of course, when it does lift off, it will throw all the way back. But for right now, they need all of the connections still to finish off prop loads and top those off, which should finish loading in the next 2 minutes or so, as well as data lines, and everything remains powered from the ground as well. The rocket will transition to internal power, and the computers will take control of everything in the count at the T-minus 1 minute mark. That is known as Falcon 9 entering startup. So right now, they are still continuing to load RP1 and liquid oxygen. So if you hear RP1 or LOX calls, that's what they're talking about. Stage 2, has all of the RP1 loaded in it. That happened from about 35 minutes to go until about 20 minutes to go, and the liquid oxygen loaded shortly after that 20-minute, 20-second vent.
I have to say the shot that SpaceX was sharing just before this is I found particularly cool because it shows just how much the specific weather conditions.
complete.
There we go. And it shows just how much the specific weather conditions affect the viewing. Even on the pad itself, there was a very distinct line where the frost was and was not forming on the booster from just the wind and condensation and everything working together. So that's why we couldn't see that frost up until this point, just because the angle from the press site doesn't show that frosty side of the booster. There we go. There's that shot again.
But as you're hearing from all the callouts, of course, liquid oxygen loading completing there. We should get a couple more callouts of fuel load wrapping up in the next minute or so. And you can see the frost forming on Falcon 9 for tonight's Starlink 6-86 mission. This the 330th Starlink launch for SpaceX and the 89th for the Group 6 denotation. Yes, it is 6-86 and it is the 89th group.
Stage
SpaceX
2
numbering's
LOX
weird.
load is complete.
And there we go. Stage 2 liquid oxygen load complete. And they should be coming up now on getting ready to close out all those gas lines with a fully fueled Falcon 9 on the pad ready to go. They will purge all the remaining lines of any excess that remains in them that could cause a danger as you have flame from 9 engines going by it.
Ground gas closeouts.
And there's the call for the gas closeouts. You can see that frost still forming. As mentioned, we're coming up shortly on Falcon 9 entering startup when the onboard computers take control of the count. Also, when the tanks will begin pressurizing to their final flight levels. Hopefully, we will hear that call out in just a couple of seconds from now. Let's listen in for that.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There we go. The next thing we should hopefully hear is the launch director giving the go for launch. Let's hope we hear that in just a few seconds.
LD, go for launch.
That's what we like to hear. About 30 seconds to go. Our clock is a little bit ahead because of the latency on the SpaceX feed, but our feeds will be in real time. 30 seconds to go now. So at this point, the next things that will happen will be the Rainbirds activating at the base of Falcon 9 to act as a sound suppression system. Then at T-minus 3 seconds, you'll see a green flash, hopefully, which is the T-tab that helps ignite those 9 engines, followed shortly after by liftoff. There's the Rainbirds. Towards the bottom right of the rocket, you can kind of see them. There's ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9 on Starlink 6-86. Go, V2 Minis, go. What a rumble tonight. 90 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has passed through max Q, maximum aerodynamic forces pushing against the vehicle. So far, everything looks good. Gorgeous views tonight. Our team continuing to track that launch as those engines will start to kind of expand outward as the atmosphere gets thinner, and it'll be more pronounced seeing each of those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the base of Falcon 9 Stage 1. Also, as it gets into the thinner parts of the atmosphere, as there's less oxygen, you'll start to see the flame get a little more blue. And when that's the case, that means that we are just about to hit 3 events in rapid succession, starting with MECO, main engine cutoff, when those 9 Merlin 1D engines will all shut down, followed by separation of the first and second stages, and then lastly, the startup of the Merlin vacuum engine in a procedure known as SES-1, Second Engine Start 1. So keep an eye out. We should be hitting MECO. And there it is. Looks right on schedule. Followed by the separation of the stages. And there's that green flash, meaning ignition on stage 2. Here it is from the onboard views, which again is a couple seconds behind our live views. And there it is. You see that green flash? That is the T-tab, triethyl aluminum triethyl borane, that they use to ignite all of the Merlin family of engines. Next up will be the payload fairing halves separating away. Those are the 2 clamshells at the top of Falcon 9 that protects the payloads on board. And that looks like that was separation. You could see that plume change there. Here's the replay again a couple seconds later, showing exactly that. One is an active and the other is a passive half. So one will actively push away from the rocket, and because of Newton's laws, the other one will also then fall away in the opposite direction. So that's how they jettison those, with an active and a passive. And then they each have parachutes and thrusters on board that they will use to then slow themselves down and float into the Atlantic Ocean. That is where recovery ship Bob is currently located downrange to scoop them up out of the water once they land. Those will then be brought back to Port Canaveral, and once they are there, they will be refurbished and flown again and again. Right now, about 4 minutes or so into flight, everything looking good. The vehicle is about to be approaching the highest point in its trajectory for stage 1, the apogee of its trajectory. So you'll notice there the speed is slowing down a bit. It'll come to a complete stop. Once it does, that will essentially be the free fall where it's at the highest point, which is usually about 113 kilometers. And there we go. Now we'll see it tick up in speed again. And there it goes. That means it is now on its way downhill finally. All that upward momentum keeping it going. Now at 113 kilometers, it will start going down in altitude but speeding up. That is why there is an entry burn that will happen in just about a minute and a half or so. That is to help slow Falcon 9 down as it goes through the thicker parts, as it re-enters, the atmosphere, and it uses its own engines as sort of a heat shield. We call it fighting fire with fire. So it is a 1-3-1, meaning the center engine ignites first. That is followed by 2 more engines that will light up in kind of a line, and then it will go back down to 1 engine before shutting down. And that flame that it creates, that it goes through, acts to help protect the vehicle through some of those re-entry forces and heating, and also makes the booster look a little bit sootier. There's a lot of nuance to it. I've been called out for specifics of it, but that's essentially that maneuver does help contribute to the sootiness that we're used to seeing on the outside of these Falcon 9 boosters. Although this booster, relatively new, only with 4 flights under its belt now that this one is underway. Meanwhile, stage 2, 150 kilometers in altitude, already at almost 13,000 kilometers an hour. Everything looking really good on the right side of the screen there with stage 2 based off the data that we can see. So we'll be coming up on that entry burn. The entry burn process in its entirety lasts just under 20 seconds. I know our team at the Cape is going to be looking to see if they could see it with their eyes and with their cameras, but if nothing else, you'll be able to see it here on this screen. You see those cold gas jet thrusters on the left, firing itself, orienting itself, and preparing for that ignition. And there we go. That is our ground views capturing the re-entry burn. Beautiful. Through the cloud there. Again, the 1-3-1 configuration right now. 3 engines firing on that. It will then cut down to a single engine. And then it will shut off, just like so. And there it is from the SpaceX feed again. There's the 3.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
There's the 1. And there's the off. And now it'll
Stage
really
2
start
FTS
bleeding off that
safe.
speed. Flight termination system safe
continue
there.
to follow a nominal trajectory.
That's what we want to hear. Nominal trajectory, all right where they're supposed to be going. You can see that plasma now through the grid fins on the booster on the left side of the screen. Those grid fins help steer the vehicle in the thicker parts of the atmosphere. Unlike Starship, which remain extended the whole time, these launch folded up and then extend outward after separation. But you really start to see them do their work as they get closer to the deck of the drone ship. Just read the instructions. You can see there's one bright pixel on the left-ish side of the screen there. That is the drone ship. That is just read the instructions. Stage 1 going below the speed of sound now. 8 kilometers off the deck. 1,200 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, stage 2 continuing to do its thing. So next up will be the landing burn, which is a single engine burn. That will be followed by the deployment of the landing legs and hopefully the 200th consecutive successful touchdown of a Falcon booster. We should be seeing that landing burn starting up momentarily.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There we go. There's those grid fins putting in the work, steering it towards the deck of the drone ship. You can kind of see, just read the instructions there. There's the onboard view. The
Landing
deluge
leg
system they
deployed.
have on the deck. There's the legs, and
Stage 1 landing
Bullseye.
confirmed.
touchdown! Another successful landing, marking this booster's 4th flight. And as mentioned, the 200th consecutive successful landing of a
Stage 2
Falcon
shutdown.
booster. And there is shutdown on stage 2. It looks right on time. It looks right on the numbers. Hopefully we hear the 3 words that we
Nominal
love
orbit
hearing on these
insertion.
missions. Those are those 3 words. Nominal orbital insertion. That's mission success for the most part here. Of course, there is still a second burn that happens about 50 minutes into flight. That is a 1 to 2-ish second burn. It's very quick. But they still do that later on. They do not broadcast that. And of course, we do not broadcast that, but you will definitely be able to see all of our replays. I believe we have our field team back. Do we have you?
Hello, Sawyer.
Hello, Max. How was it?
Beautiful as always. It's always a real treat. And I know we say it a lot, but it is a real treat to see Starlink fly from Pad A because our views are so much better and we're so much closer, and as a result, the sound is that much more uh here. I guess we could say it's a lot louder, and it's also a treat seeing it fly southeast from this perspective as well because we get a lot more of a side-on profile than we do from like 40 because from there it's flying directly away from us going southeast. So, a real treat. Crystal clear skies, could not have asked for better viewing conditions, and the fog itself was still a bit on the ground, but if anything, it made the shot just a little bit prettier. So it went well.
And the sound tonight, oh, that rumble lasted a while. Was that the kind of thick air doing that?
Oh, very much so. I was hoping that you guys had the mic because I forgot to plug it into like almost the very last minute. I think I plugged it. I think I got it plugged in at T minus 50 seconds because it was charging before then. So I hope y'all had audio from that. But yes,
We did.
Yeah, good. Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it did linger for a while. But we also get that as well because it was flying more so kind of alongside us more than it was flying away from us as well. So but the thick air the thick air out here tonight certainly did help.
It really does. The thicker the air, the sound just lingers. It hangs in the air. That's why no launch is ever the same. The weather conditions change, the clouds, the temperatures all make a difference in how a rocket looks and sounds from the ground. Uh, Daniel here was saying that they were on the Space Coast to see the launch visiting from Maryland. Hopefully, you got a great view of it, and hopefully, it was gorgeous for you. A dub also saying, "My first time, it hauls butt when you're zoomed in.
Sure
It hauls
does.
butt when you're not zoomed in too."
Yes, it sure does. If you're punched in that super tight focal length, she certainly gets a move on for sure.
And Falcon 9 is one of the zippier ones off the pad, especially when you compare it to, obviously, New Glenn is painfully slow. Uh, SLS gets off at a decent clip, but we don't see it fly that often. Um, I mean, Vulcan is the one that shoots out of there like it has a date and it's running late for it.
I would argue that Falcon 9 is more of like a normal pace getting off the pad, and the quickest accelerating launch vehicle that we currently have operating in Florida is the Atlas 551 with 5 solids attached to it. It gets up and goes quicker than I think any rocket we currently have flying here, and it hauls. I remember I was talking to Kevin about the previous the previous Atlas launch we had here was the Viasat mission, and he was going through some cameras in Space Coast Live and through his various producing controls, and the rocket was so fast he didn't have time to actually change views the way he wanted to because it moves that quickly. So I would argue Falcon 9 is kind of the benchmark and seems pretty normal now.
I have not run a tracking rig for Atlas. I've only done tracking for Falcon 9, so I trust you on that one.
But now, mind you, we've only seen Vulcan fly with this point with up to 4 solids, and with 4 solid, it is pretty quick, and with 2, not so much. But when they end up finally strapping 6 on it, that is going to absolutely haul the mail.
Oh my god, I can't wait for that. And when they have the extended fairing, oh, it's going to be a cool looking rocket.
100%. Same with Falcon Heavy, and it's a bigger fairing, but we have no idea really when that's coming.
Well, yeah, about that. About those launch dates. Speaking of,
Yeah.
you could see the strongback already going back to vertical about 10 minutes after launch it started. It's amazing how quick they raise it back up because they want to keep the production rate going, huh?
They sure do, and it's even more so the case over at 40, where really the arm is also, or the arm, the transporter erector is also raised vertical by about t plus 20 minutes, I should say, not the t minus 20 minutes. Yeah, they move it up pretty quickly to reattach itself to the fixed structure underneath before they lower it back down in preparation to receive another vehicle. Although we don't see them flying from 39A nearly as often as we do from Pad 40, as Pad 40 is quite literally the busiest launch complex in the world at the moment.
Well, I mean, I can tell you it's not Site 31 at Baikonur, that's for sure.
I sure hope not.
Too soon?
It's not our space program. It is, but it's not. It does affect ours, but you know.
Yeah. But yeah, and we talk about the pace though. Still, they're going to get this pad turned around in theory very quickly. As of right now, the next launch from it is scheduled for this coming Sunday at 4:40 p.m. for the Starlink 6-92 launch from 39A.
During
Which is-
daylight hours as well.
I know, rare. Although, then again, the next launch that SpaceX has, which is Tuesday, at least the East Coast launch, I should say. There's another Vandy one. But for Space Coast launches, Starlink Group 6-95 is right now no earlier than Tuesday at 3:16 p.m. Eastern Time as well. So SpaceX never sleeps, that is for sure. And apparently
Well-
neither do we.
Well, you say that, but they had pretty much the entire last week off, so it was quite a nice change of pace for us here on the ground because we were getting pretty tired, especially after New Glenn Flight 2. But yeah, they want to hit their target, and they want to fly as often as they can in December because geez, it's already December.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they are already well over 100 launches at this point, the fact that I believe they are over 100 launches from Florida at this point is crazy. I think it's close to 100 from Florida for SpaceX alone. I know we had hit 100 launches from Florida. What was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I believe it's currently at with this one. I believe it's at 95 or 96. Because remember, we've had the one Vulcan. We've had how many Atlases have we had? 3.
I think 3.
3 Atlases, 1 Vulcan, and also 2 New Glens as well. So, SpaceX themselves, I think, has contributed to up to, I think, 94 or 95 at this point.
9 days Joe saying, I thought you were going to say the 500th again. Well, you're in luck, because guess what? This launch was the 597th overall launch for SpaceX. And I know there's going to be a million asterisks with it, and Alex going, actually, it's if you count this, and that. But, yeah, we're getting into the 600 range, 600th overall launch, 600th Falcon family launch, 600th Falcon orbital launch, 600th Falcon 9 launch. All of that is coming soon. Oh, goodness gracious. And I know DY's working on getting the awesome slow-mo replays that we love to see here after the launch. And the views, usually from 39A, I mean, Max, I don't think people realize how much easier it is for us to shoot a launch at 39A than it is to shoot the ones over at 40, because there's basically no obstructions. There's no real trees that are tall enough to be in the way.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to set up for at least us here on the ground with our cameras and tables and everything else we need to live stream. From pad 40, we have to march all the way out onto the press site lawn, out onto the far southeast corner, because that is really the best view we can possibly get of that pad. But that is about 1,000 feet away from where we currently keep our stuff over here at the hut, which is the building that we currently use here at the press site. So it's a hike for sure, and can be a bit of a headache, especially when you have bad weather bearing down on you, or it's super windy, or they haven't cut the grass here in a while, and you're walking through a whole bunch of spikes and hitchhikers. It can be a bit troublesome, but Pad A is certainly a treat to set up for because it is far simpler.
Oh yeah, those little round prickly things that stick to every article of clothing you own and then into you. Those are painful, and they are littered across the lawn.
You already know.
Oh yeah, I've gotten them stuck in my hands while I'm wheeling many a times. But it's still the view here. It's also the Launch Complex 39 press site. So it has the best views of 39 A and B as a result. Slick 40, you've seen it from even our cameras at the hut, the robotic cameras. You can't really see much over there because it's all behind the tree line. Ooh, someone getting the puzzle in the shot. Nice.
Ooh, very nice.
And it's shuttle. Of course it's shuttle. Need to bug Chris Bergen to do another shuttle Sunday soon. I know it can't be this Sunday, though, because obviously we have another launch coming up, and NSF will be there to cover all of the upcoming launches from the Cape this week, and essentially for the rest of the year. We've got you covered here. And we have an amazing team that helps to do it. Max, thank you for rolling out as always and heading out there and shooting video and shooting the breeze with me on air, too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Sawyer. It is a pleasure, as it always is. There really is no other place on the earth where we can do this so often, and let alone share it with the world as we try to do our best with. So treat as always, and we hope to see y'all again back for the next one very soon in just a couple of days.
Wait, did you change your Twitter handle to MaxQ?
Oh, is it not changed on the card?
It is
Oh,
changed.
Yes,
That's
it
why.
is.
I didn't
did.
realize that.
I did, yes, sir.
Nice. Also out in the field, D-Wise, thank you, D, for rolling out as well and joining on commentary and for the video.
Of course, it has been an absolute pleasure being here this early morning.
Always love the late night Starlink launches. They do be hitting different, and that's usually Carson's problem when it comes to producing, and as is the case tonight, Carson producing, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I've been your host for this evening's launch. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you for the next one, and now enjoy Falcon 9 in slow motion.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside ST off. Bring in ST off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting with the flare, correct?